Hello, this is meRz doing another FPVOD, and this is Terran versus Zerg on Andromeda, and it's B minus versus B minus level, and it's a pretty it's not it's a pretty old game, old enough for me to not being able to remember what exact build order I went for in this game. But since it's Terran vs Zerg and it's Andromeda, I guess that I'm going for a one barrack into command center build, which is the most common build in Terran vs Zerg these days. And I found out by playing this map a lot that a lot of Zergs like to go an early evolution chamber while taking to meRz, and while they're doing their mute harassment, they like to take up to a quick hive and do a fast ultralisk build. So, I guess I always look out for that when I'm playing Andromeda these days, because I've lost a couple of times to it, and I think that the fast ultralisk build order is really hard to beat once they've gotten the ultras up. If you don't manage to break the Zerg before he gets the ultras going, it's going to be a lot harder to kill him, obviously, of course, but I think it might be one of the stronger builds to stop if it's already gone through. If he has his 3 gases up and he has his ultras up, you haven't been able to inflict any serious damage to him, you might be in a whole lot of trouble. And I've seen C Shields, to mention one sub-Terran pro gamer versus Savior, and I think it was in Paris during the WWI event, where Savior went for mute harassment early on and transitioned into quick ultras, and C wasn't able to inflict any serious damage early on, and the game got really drawn out, but C lost in the end, and you could clearly see how hard it is to stop the build order once those ultras actually are out. So anyways, important thing to remember if you're opening with this build in Terran vs Zerg is that if you don't scout Zerg on the first position, you might want to add a second supply depot and build 2 to 4 marines before you actually build the command center, because that's a lot safer. Because if they were to go for a quick 9 pool, and if you were to place that command center, you would be in a lot of trouble. So it's a lot safer that way. Even if you find him at the first position you scout, it's still going to be really hard to fight a 9 pool. So if you're an inexperienced player and you don't really know how to deal with a 9 pool, I suggest that you put your command center where I put it, above the expansion, because I know that most good gamers, most good Terran players likes to place their command center right at expansion. But those Terrans are usually really good at what they do, and they're familiar with facing strategies like 9 pool, because if a Zerg 9 pools when you do this strategy, he'd be having his first few Zerglings at your base when you have 1 or 2 marines, and that can be really hard to fight off because you're forced to, obviously, since your command center is already on the expansion, and he'll be able to harass it. So anyways, what I like to do is, if I have to delay my command center and build a second supply default before placing it down, I usually place my command center above my expansion on a choke, because I'm not that comfortable at defending a 9 pool with this build. So and I know that my chances are a lot higher to defend it if I have my commander on a choke or something like that, so I can block off with SCVs without having to worry about floating any SCVs down to my expansion, so that I can use the choke to my advantage if he were to go for a 9 pool. So anyways, in this game I see that he's going for a lurker build, which, I mean, a lurker build should supposedly be a lot better on this map than a few other maps, because the Zerg has such an easy access to a third to 3 mineral incomes, and I mean that really benefits the Zerg if they're going for a lurker build. I mean, because a lurker link build is a lot more heavy on the minerals than a muralist build, because if you go for a muralist build, you're usually concerned about the gas, but a lurker build, there's going to be a lot of minerals spent on that. So I can definitely see why a lot of Zergs are going for lurker build on this map to open up with. So anyways, it's just standard procedure here, like if your Zerg opponent goes for the lurker build, you should always opt to close him in, or contain him as long as possible, in order to delay his lurkers going to your expansion, and in order for you to be able to get the proper tech up, like a factory and a starport and stuff like that. And I kinda messed up because I realized that my supply depot was in a really bad place because it's messed up my gas, so I had to cancel it. So right now I've been needing additional supply depots for like a minute or so I haven't been able to produce anything. So I think I remember being quite kind of worried at this point, because I thought he'd have a shitload of lurkers, but somehow he was kind of late on getting his lurkers as well, so it didn't really matter. I guess when you're facing a lurker build, you would rather go for a faster factory than a faster third barracks, and I guess that's kind of obvious, because you'd rather want your tanks out and your vessel out when you're facing a 3 hatchery lurker build, simply because that you're a lot more mobile and you're able to move out a lot quicker, and you're also able to defend a lot better if you have tanks, and especially on a map like Andromeda, because there's a choke and you can just position your tanks on the choke so that they can fire from a choke, and they're really hard to get to. So anyways, like I said, it's really important to contain your Zerg opponent as long as possible. At this point, I've got my SCV out because I know that he needs some third expansion, and I saw a drone head to the 7 o'clock position, but I decided to chase the lurkers, which in retrospect was a really, really bad decision. I should have just gone to the very far left of the map, because I had enough to defend the counter in my main, and I would have been able to prevent him from getting a third gas, which is really, really good. If you can prevent Zerg from getting a third gas, you basically have like a 70% chance of winning, at least if you know what you're doing. That is because these days this game has gotten so economy based that a Zerg really needs his third gas to be able to stay in the game versus a middle game Terran, because Terran just gets too good in the middle or in the late game, so that Zerg will need to have really heavy gas units like the fighters. And I'm not really sure why I said that, but it's pretty common sense now, I guess. But anyways, just pretty simple. If you're able to stop his third expansion or delay it, you should opt to do that. as long as possible. So anyways, I got kinda thrown off here because I scanned his main and realized that he had gotten a pretty quick hive. I mean, usually they time their hive so that they have it at around the same time as they're able to get their third expansion going, and I mean transferring probes and getting gas up. And that's really not the timing, so he got it like 2 or 3 minutes before I usually explain it. So, in order to fight Swarm, you have to get out and counter it, and I tried to snipe the Defiler, and it all went horrible, and I just lost a bunch of Marines. So right now, I'm in a pretty bad situation because it really caught me off guard with that Dark Swarm, and I lost a lot of units trying to snipe his Defiler. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna try to shut off his reinforcements as much as possible, because I know that I have a couple of vessels in my main and a few tanks. So as long as I can stop the reinforcements from coming and annoy him on the path to my main, I'm going to be able to break out. So like that is my main concern right now, and I'm still a bit confused to why he hasn't moved in, and then he decides to move in just as when I started wondering what the hell was going on. And unfortunately my tanks are getting messed up because they're blocked by my bunkers and marines, so I kinda lose them. But I still have a small infantry that is blocking his path, so he hasn't been able to reinforce, which really helps me in this, because if he would have been able to reinforce, there's no telling of how long this would have continued, and it might have won him the game. I'd say that Terran vs Zerg is probably my worst matchup, and Terran vs Protoss being my best. So I like to think that I'm fairly fast when I play, but there's something that if I face a Zerg player and it goes to late game with defilers and stuff like that, I'm kinda all over the place, but I'm really not doing anything, which sounds pretty strange. But I get kinda confused and I don't really know how to react, because I kind of panic realizing how they're grabbing more and more expansions while they're able to defend it with the Dark Swarm. So, that's really something I need to work on. I really need to figure out the late game Terran vs Zerg. So, if it looks bad, it's just because it's my worst matchup, I guess, at the moment. So it's kind of funny because once I feel confident in Terran vs Zerg, it usually ends up with me being bad Terran vs Protoss instead, and then I fix my Terran vs Protoss and end up being bad Terran vs Zerg again. Then it just goes around like that. So anyways, in this game I managed to get back to the game, so to say. I managed to stop his little containment with Dark Swarms outside of me, and I'm trying to establish map control again, but he's kind of knocking at my door with Dark Swarm again, and I really need to make things happen at this point. I know that he's probably going to take a fourth gas, or he might even already have a fourth gas, and that means that it's time for Alphalisks, because basically Zerg is the goal for Zerg is to stall Terran as long as possible with Dark Swarm while they're getting their fourth gas, in order to be able to get Ultralisks, because 4 gases is very much like the magic number for getting Ultras. It's like the perfect timing, and in a situation like this where he has me under control, or he had me under control, it's like the perfect moment. So I know that Alphalisks may be coming up soon if I don't react. So I stuck around, and I'm gonna try to contain him instead for a while. But I also realized that there's an expansion, so I'm gonna take that out first, which is the 4th gas I was talking about. Because as long as I can keep it down to 3 gas, he's not gonna be able to produce ultralisks, at least not like enough to be efficient. And that was really strange because I somehow decided to take off all but one SV from my gas as expansion, and I'm not really sure what I did at. And I might have just been under a lot of stress, and I didn't even notice. I don't know. It's just there's no logic to taking off your SUVs from the gas. So anyways, right now it's starting to look pretty good. At least it's at least looking decent because I have a lot of barracks up. I have pretty good upgrades, and I've been able to fend off most of his attacks. And I was also able to destroy his um, fort expansion. And I mean, so far I'm able to handle this in terms of Zerg. Like if he has Dog Swarm and 3 gases, that's not a huge problem. It's like as long as I can stop him from expanding a lot more, then I'm going to be okay. I mean, basically, if they reach Ultra Tech, I basically lose like 90% of the time, or maybe even 95% of the time. I'm not even kidding. And so, anyways, that's not the case here. I'm able to have a small M&M force that is scouting the very far left, and he had lurkers there, and I didn't know that, so I kind of went suicidal with that army. But I mean, at this point, Sir can't do much because I haven't contained, and of course he could use a Nidus Canal to just get the hell out of there and counter me. But if he would do that, I'd pretty much just attack him right up front his first expansion, and that really hurt, and I should have paid more attention. So he's pretty much out of options right now. He needs a Fort gas, and I need to stop him from taking that Fort gas. And as long as I can do that, I'm going to be pretty safe. Because once Terran gets like a decent amount of vessels and like decent amount of upgrades on his M4s, I mean lurkers and Darkstorm and lurkers isn't enough anymore, and I also have mines. So at this point, if you reach like in a situation like this, you really just need to keep the Zerg from expanding, which I am doing right now while trying to contain him. But he's doing a pretty decent job of breaking the containment by using plague. But that doesn't stop me from killing his expansion, and I'm gonna go ahead and kill his other expansion too, which is going to be really, really bad for him. So right now I'm definitely in a really, really good position because I just took down his attempt to afford gas, and I'm gonna kill his 3rd gas. And so if I can just hold out while preventing him from reestablishing any new expansions, it's going to be it's gonna be okay. One thing to do in a situation like this, or like a similar situation to where Zerg has Hive Tech and Dark Swarm, and you have 2 starports, one really good move is to build like a couple of dropships and just try a Doom drop or something as main. I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, dropships overall in terms of Zerg, I mean, that's pretty much the best and mobile unit you can use in the late game versus Zerg. So I mean, a Doom drop of 2 or 3 dropships will really hurt him, and it will like mess up his concentration, and it'll mess up anything he had planned for, stuff like that. So I guess if you had 2 starports, it's always nice to throw in a couple of dropships there. Preferably if you have a lot of vessels like I have or had. I'm not quite sure if I have enough left, and I still haven't put any new workers on the gas, that's not even supposed to be able to happen. Like I can't remember the last time I pulled off his weeds from gas and forgot about it. But since I didn't do it intentionally from the first place, that might be the problem. So anyways, it's not really much to talk about at this point because he's pretty much fighting an uphill battle from here on, and I'm just being really sloppy about it because I know that he has got like the two gases that he has in his expansion in main, and those are probably depleted or going to deplete pretty soon. So I just need to keep be on the lookout for any new attempts to expand, and I just need to keep him at bay outside his expansion, just annoy the hell out of him with my vessels, and that's gonna be pretty much it. Because as you can see, like he can barely get out of his main right now. So there's not much more to it, and I should have probably gone ahead and expanded myself at this point, and I should most definitely realize that I don't have enough gas, so I should probably check my expansion and see why I don't have any gas. But I guess it's kind of a sloppy game from my side, I guess. And but I mean, it's still, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty. I mean, the Zerg had a window of opportunity in the beginning where he caught me off guard with that fast high tech, but he didn't really capitalize on it because he took a very long time. Even though I tried to snipe to the fighter, I only lost a shitload of units. He didn't really capitalize on that, and he didn't attack. He just waited a really, really long time, and that let me back in the game. I was able to reproduce everything I had and set up a couple of mines and stuff like that. And ever since that happened, he's been kind of fighting an uphill battle. He hasn't been able to take to ultras, and he's lost his expansions. So everything he's done from that point has been a failure, so to say. And I just dropped the main for the heck of it. It wasn't the best place to drop on. It was like probably the worst place that I could drop on because it was easily accessible from his choke and from his expansion, so he could just move his units real quick. But at this point, I knew that I had the game won, so I just did whatever I wanted. It's not like he could stop any of it, basically. My only main concern is that I need an expansion, and I also saw that he tried to expand at the top left, which isn't going to help him much because he can't really gain access to it, and I have dropped his out. So, anyways, well, yeah, like I said, there's not much to talk about. Well, like I said before, like really a lot before, or like in the very beginning of this game, that a very popular strategy on this map is fast ultralisks, and like as a Terran player, I think that most Terran players would agree with me that if you need to stop as a fast ultralisk build, you need to do it like right before he actually gets the ultralisks. Like the small window of time where he's just about to finish it up, and he just has mutalisks and Zerglings and Sunkels to defend. I mean, and what I like to do is like if I scan the Zerg main early on, while I'm trying to determine what tech is going for, and if I see one evolution chamber then and a spire, that's almost like 100% indicator of that he's gonna go for the fast ultralisk build. Because what Zerg does is that they're getting that fast carapace build in order to have at least 4+ armor on their ultras when they're fully upgraded. So what I like to do if I see that is that I go for the 5 barrack build, which you might have seen before. Is you basically add 4 more barracks, or you basically add it up to 5 barracks, and you delay your factory a whole lot. And what you want to do is basically you want to get up like 2 or 2.5 group of M&Ms, and then you want to get 2.5 group of Marines and 5 bats basically, and then you want to get at least like 6 or 7 medics, and at that point you want to break his sunken line. And I found out that this build works like very good versus fast altruist build, because there's a small window there's a small window of opportunity where you have like such a big force of M&Ms that you're pretty much able to break through any sunken line. I mean, even if it has like 10 sunken colonies, it's not gonna matter, because you will have +1 on your marines, and you'll have like 7 medics and like almost 3 groups of M&Ms. So I mean, no sunken line in the world can stop that. I mean, well, you can't stop it, of course. So I guess if you don't have trouble with a fast altruist build on this map, I guess you could just try that. And I guess best advice would be to look out for that evolution shaper early on, because that almost always means that it will be going for the fast altruist build. So like the timing of your attack should be about when your +1 finishes, and if it's finishing really early, you could probably wait until you have like 3 or 2.5 groups of M&Ms. So yeah, that's about it, I guess. And he's fucked now, and it's gonna GG anytime, because he's lost a bunch of drones, or all of his drones. And yeah.